What's up? What's up? Nick Loper here from the Side Hustle Show. If you really want to learn how to level up your life, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my good friend, Scott Ferguson. Let's level up.
Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and we're at episode 285. And I am super, just really super blessed to bring on Nick Loper from Side Hustle Nation, the Side Hustle Show podcast. He is really helping people escape the rat race by bringing on people that are side hustling, making extra income on the side, and he interviews them. And the ideas in there, I've actually picked up 3 ideas from his shows that I've actually implemented into my own lifestyle. So I really dig deep on his past and what brought him to where he's at now. And he was so open, so giving with his time. He even actually went over a little longer, being a busy guy that he is. So without further ado, here's my really good friend, Nick Loper, the host of the Side Hustle Show. Let's level up. Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and I have, this sounds so cliche, I haven't really said it too much before, but I had this kind of a bated breath interview. There's certain podcasts out there that I push play on, every time. And my friend here, Nick Loper's Side Hustle Nation podcast is something that's absolutely fantastic. It's given me ideas to pass on to my clients that are looking to do something on the side and maybe bring in some income. And again, his name's Nick Loper, and he helps people earn money outside of their day job. He's an author of a bazillion books. It seems like if you go to his Amazon page, which I'll put in the show notes, he's got a bunch of books, and there will be a free book giveaway at the end. So make sure you listen. And again, he's an author, online entrepreneur, and host of the award-winning Side Hustle Show podcast, which features new part-time business ideas each week. As chief side hustler at sidehustlenation.com, he loves deconstructing the tactics and strategies behind building extra income streams. And Nick, I'm so blessed. Thank you so much for coming on. Please introduce yourself to the Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. But first, what's your favorite color and why?
Favorite color? Green.
Green. What's that, brother?
Why? It reminds me of nature, camping, hiking as a kid. Looking out, even as built up as this area, suburban Seattle, has become, you can still go out in the middle of the lake and look up at the hills, and they're still green all year round. Love it.
It's like side hustling can almost be like a rebirth, which kind of coordinates with green, right? A little bit in sense. But also if you caught a fish over at Pike's, was it Pike's?
Oh, Pike Place. I haven't done it. I've seen people
fun.
Do it. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, man. I got my video of me catching it. First try, too. It was awesome. Good times. So, Nick, before we kind of dig into the podcast and what you do for people to earn that side income, can you give us a little background of kind of where you started and worked your way up the ranks and started to thrive helping others?
Yeah. So my original side hustle was started even kind of before graduation. It was what morphed into a comparison shopping site for footwear, where we pull in the catalogs from Zappos and Amazon and all these other footwear retailers. And we would tell you where you can find the best price on your next pair of shoes, and all these cool product level coupon integrations that would bake into the price. And we'd earn affiliate commission on any sale that was generated through the site. So that was my original side hustle. That was like 3 years, nights and weekends while working corporate to get up to the point where I felt comfortable giving my notice at work. Ran that for several more years, started a bunch of projects on the side. Most of those projects, for full disclosure, were abysmal failures. A couple of them that stuck around. One of those was the Side Hustle Show podcast and the Side Hustle Nation blog.
When did you launch the Side Hustle podcast?
2013.
2013? Wow. And do people, I gotta ask you,
I'm old.
No, I just turned 50, so I just launched my podcast in 2019, at the end of 2019.
Yeah.
And again, it was, as my squad knows, it was something that I did selfishly because I wanted to, I'm an executive coach and whatnot. And I wanted to pick up steps from other people that are helping people, but it just morphed into something more. People started promoting it, and it was just got crazy. Like I do yours,
Yeah.
So
thank you for that.
The podcasting is absolutely phenomenal. And your show, do people apply to come onto your show, Nick? Or is it something you see someone doing something, you reach out to them and say, hey, you want to be a guest?
A combination of both. So I get a ton of inbound, PR pitches where typically if the person can afford a PR person, they're not going to be a great fit for the show. Like, so-and-so, New York Times bestselling author of blah, 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 like cool, but not necessarily relevant. I do accept a bunch of inbound pitches through sidehustlenation.com/pitch. If you're a guest, like always on the hunt for, interesting, compelling side hustle stories. Typically start with the hook or the angle. Okay, what's the story that we want to tell? What am I curious about? What do I want to learn more about? And then go find somebody doing that thing who's going to be a good fit to tell that story. And then, either search in the community, search kind of like who do you know, like ask for recommendations and try and find interesting people that way. Found a couple interesting people on Twitter recently, including at Squeegee God, Johnny Robinson, who's I interviewed him on his last day of college, have built this window washing business to $700,000.
Wow.
It was really, really inspiring. Like, man, I wish I was as entrepreneurial as you at that age. I think he's going to go far.
Right. So you worked corporate. What did you do?
So I was at the bottom rung of the Ford Motor Company ladder, where I would interface with their dealers on the service and parts side of their business. It was, one part sales, one part customer service, one part consulting. And it was cool. Like, I don't know, I had a company car driving around. The car business is a fascinating business. I just had no desire to climb the corporate ladder there.
Where were you living when you worked for Ford?
First in DC or outside of DC, Northern Virginia, then in Atlanta, then in Northern California.
Okay.
So their theory early on, I don't know if they still do this, but their theory at that time was like, we're going to take these college grads and we're going to move them as far away from home as possible. So they'll be they won't have any friends outside of work. So they'll be super loyal to the company. And so what ended up happening, which was true, those were my coworkers or the people that I hung out with on the weekends. But it was a lot of free time at the apartment. Well, let's try and build up this shoe thing.
That's what I was just going to ask. What launched that idea into Side Hustle Nation? Was it you guys were kind of bored? Because it sounds to me like I've been to the Google campus, and it's like they do everything they can to keep those people together and creating and whatnot, and they just hang out with each other. And it also reminds me of the show Silicon Valley, which is one of my favorite shows where they all just kind of hang out together. Is it just a few you guys sitting around going, man, we're so far away from home, you and each other, all we have, and just start to think of things to do on the side?
Yeah, I don't know that anybody else was doing that stuff. But, we would, we'd hang out at the bar and we'd watch college football. And, you do that for a few weekends and you're like, okay, this costs a lot of money. This is not great for my health. I don't care about 90% of these games. There's got to be a better use of my time. So that's when I started doubling down on the business, going on long bike rides, just trying to, I don't know, it was cool to hang out. And I was, grateful to get the invite as the new guy, the new hire, but it was, it didn't really serve the long-term goals.
Did you ever go to the Glass House in Dearborn, Michigan ever? Or did you do everything remote?
Yeah, we did some training out in Dearborn. Staying at the Dearborn Inn.
Oh yeah, Hyatt. Yeah, right there. Yeah, I'm from Michigan, so it's nice. I grew up there, and Ford and GM and Chrysler's in my blood. My dad worked for General Motors for 30 years, so
we still got friends out there.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
I don't know. It's a different world. They're in their own little bubble where imports don't really exist. It's
gotcha.
You get off the airport, you're like, oh, the market share here compared to the market share everywhere else.
I live in South Florida where it's foreign car nation and I only will drive American. They give me a little bit of crap down here. People like, dude, go get your Benz. I'm like, no, I got my 300 and I got my Mustang and I am good. Because that keeps my dad talking to me, so which is good. But okay, so you had a corporate job, you're making a living, you're building this side hustle. And when were you able to get to a point to say, you know what, I can do this full time?
So for me, I wanted to see a track record of revenue going back 6 to 12 months that was at least covering my monthly expenses. And maybe track record of revenue is incorrect. Track record of bottom line profit. How much?
Understood.
How much are we actually making from this thing?
Right.
I think a lot of people put the pressure on themselves to like, well, I need to replace my salary. And it's like, well, that would be great. And it's like really impressive when people can do that while still working full time, and they built their side hustle. So it's like, outpace their day job. And that's when I knew it was time to quit. Like,
Wow.
golf clap, like, congratulations.
Yeah.
But as long as you're living below your means, I think if you're covering your expenses, then, you're at least not going to go backwards. Make sure you have a little bit of runway, saved up, safety net, buffer in savings should anything go wrong. But the reason that I felt comfortable doing that was, because we were living below our means. And I thought with an extra, 50, 60 hours a week to dedicate to the business,
Sure.
I could easily get it to that point and beyond. And that's kind of what happened early on.
You said we. Is there partners?
I say we because I had like an outsourced development team.
Beautiful.
At that point.
Okay.
But it was mostly the collective we, and then eventually hired a admin or a kind of a virtual assistant person to help out with that too.
I do the same thing. Absolutely. That's awesome. So when did you have the itch, for lack of a better term, to really roll out getting people interested in having a side hustle?
Yeah. So this is 5 years into full-time self-employment for me. So I've been doing the shoe thing for a long time, started a bunch of other projects that, really only one of them had worked at that point. Mm-hmm. A lot of them was, showing signs of life. The rest hadn't really worked, but it was kind of at a low point in the shoe business where, you kind of start asking a lot of the same questions that I'll turn around and ask Side Hustle Show listeners. Like, what do you never get tired about talking about? What lights you up? What do you want to be known for when somebody Googles you? And for me, this idea of deconstructing different business ideas really played into my natural curiosity. I've been running a personal blog at that time that nobody ever read, but some of the most fun content that I had created was around that idea of like trying to figure out the business model of restaurant.com or some of these like, penny auction bidding sites that were popular at the time.
That's crazy.
Just like, wait a minute, where did the money come from? Like restaurant.com, for example, I think is still on the first page of Google, like this blog post that I wrote years and years ago.
Wow.
Southwest Business Select, like a creative upsell that like cost them, basically nothing. Like they pour you like a free drink and they, charge you an extra $100 on your ticket. Like, that's a fantastic ROI. I loved all of that stuff. And, pointing the mic at other people for the podcast was a chance to, explore that with other entrepreneurs. Like, okay, you don't have to be the end all be all guru on this stuff. Like, okay, you were able to quit your job. Cool. You've been medium successful. It's not $1 million business, but
sure.
It doesn't have to be. Other people can tell their stories. And that was kind of the light bulb moment. And that's what really kind of took off much more so than the written content.
It's such a go-giver mentality, man. That's awesome that you're giving other people a platform. And I love that, you say you're not looking for the people that have really, quote unquote, I did this in air quotes if you're not watching a video, that they haven't made it, right? They're building and they're actually got there in the trenches. And I've got to ask you, people that you interview, you don't have to name them, but I'm just curious if you ever used any of the side hustles that you've interviewed in your own life?
Yeah, for sure. Lots of times. And early on,
okay, cool.
Kind of the thesis of the site.
That's awesome.
Like I'll be the guinea pig. I'll experiment with this stuff. I had all these plans to be, sign up to be a Lyft driver and like report back on how this works. But early on, I was selling stuff on Fiverr, selling stuff on eBay, Amazon, like inspired by guests, creating a Udemy course, like doing the self-publishing thing, which I'd done a little bit of before, but like learning from other people who had done it. Yeah, that was a big part of the brand early on, like these little experiments, and still is to a certain extent today.
Yes.
Kind of report back on what works, but really kind of applying it more so on like the SEO, online business front, email marketing front these days.
God, I love that. I love it. So when you're, let me see, how can I ask this? Let me ask you this. Have you seen the movie Back to the Future?
Yeah, a long time ago, but yeah.
Okay. Let's get in that DeLorean with Marty McFly. All right. Let's go back to the Double Deuce, the 22-year-old Nick Loper. What kind of knowledge nuggets, that's what we call him here at Time Shine today, what kind of knowledge nuggets would you be dropping on the 22-year-old Nick to maybe help him level up, blast through, and shorten the learning curve just a little bit?
I don't know if 22-year-old Nick would have taken my advice. Like
Me neither. Mine.
He was still pretty smart. I was
Right.
like, I wish I was half as smart now as I was at 22. The Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the one of the biggest realizations or revelations was, okay, you don't have to go at it alone. Like somebody else has probably already solved these problems. Like I was very like heads down, like trying to do my own thing instead of like looking for answers, trying to figure out maybe who, not how. In a lot of ways, where it's like, okay, if I could get some mentorship or peer accountability earlier on, I think that would have been really powerful. I didn't discover mastermind groups probably for another 10 years after that. And I think that would have been really helpful to have earlier on, because it was like, was still doing side businesses at that time.
Right.
And just, felt very isolated in a way.
Bro, that is such a strong knowledge nugget that, I call it getting your asking gear, right? You don't have to be alone. You can go ask, and there's people, it's called, his story for a reason. There's people that have left bread trails of crumbs that can answer your questions. There's actually people still breathing air that can answer your questions. You don't have to be alone. That's amazing, man. That thank you for saying that. So how does Nick want his dash remembered? That little line in between your incarnation date and your expiration date, your life date and your death date. How does Nick want his dash remembered?
Hopefully as a good husband and father, and somebody who helped some people start their own businesses and exercise a little bit of financial independence in their lives.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic. So what keeps Nick up at night?
Oh gosh, lots of, macro concerns about global geopolitical drama and climate disaster and the increasing polarization in absolutely every category of everything. I don't know how we dial back that, where we could find some middle ground. Because if we zoom out, like we all want the same things. We want a healthy planet to live. We want, a positive future for our kids.
Right.
So it's like, it boggles my mind how we just have gotten to this point of, everything, it has to be fought over. And it's like, I don't know. It's kind of,
I'm right.
It's scary. Like I do lose sleep over it.
I'm right there with you with regards to the macro stuff. Like the micro stuff I've had to teach myself through the years, and I'm pretty good at to shut it down. I'm like, there's nothing I can do about it right now. But the macro stuff that oversees everything, it's I only drink out of glass. It's like I try to do my part to make sure it's right and without preaching too much, helping other people along to do their part. But you're right, man. There's so many concerns with where we're at, especially in this day and age. In the past 27 months, it's just been. I mean, it's been going on a long time before that, but this past 27 months, it's just been outrageous. That's the right term. It's been crazy. So, what do you think people then misunderstand the most about Nick?
I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty transparent on the show. Like I'll meet people at events and they're kind of like, maybe they're surprised like how quiet I am in real life.
Right.
Because I got to get up for the show. What's up, Nick? Loper here. Welcome to the Side Hustle Show.
Right.
And because it's like, it's audio only, like you got to bring some energy. And like, and it's not to say like I'm not energetic in person, but it's like, I'm more just, try and listen in on what else is going on. So I'm not always, I don't know. I think people are sometimes surprised. Like you sound like, just like you do on air. I get that. But then I also get the, you're quieter than you are, or you're taller than I expected. Like, do I sound short? I don't know. It's always fun to meet listeners in real life.
It's funny because I could listen to you and hit episode after episode after episode. I couldn't listen to me and it's not because I don't like hearing my own voice. It's just I'm up and I'm up all the time. It's crazy. I go in, I'm the big Midwestern guy, hugs everybody, and that's just me. But like you do. And this is a compliment. Don't think anything weird about it. You have this voice that's soothing, that keeps people tuned in. You feel me? So it's like that is a gift that you have that you were blessed with. And that's just fantastic, man. It's awesome. I mean, I can listen to episode after episode and it's like, it never get boring, but it doesn't feel like I have to be like Like I'm sure people are with my shows, which is fine. Good, but I'm just being authentic and I'm being me.
I feel like years of podcast listening has made me talk faster. I feel like 15 years ago, I had probably a little slow drawl, and I was living in Atlanta, so I was picking up like the local drawl. I'd go home for Thanksgiving in Seattle. My family would be like, "Who are you?" But I think years of listening to podcasts at like 1.5 or 2x has made me like speak faster. And then you ever listen to somebody's show, even if you listen to the Side Hustle show, if you listen to it at 1x, you'd be like, is this guy asleep? I do the same thing with like Pat Flynn. Like, oh my gosh, he sounds so tired. Because if you're used to it at 1.7 or something, then everybody's going to sound tired.
I run the South Florida Podcasters Association down here, right? And there's like 300 members, right? None of them, barely.
Florida's a hot spot for podcasting. Yeah. Jared from Podcast Movement is there.
Yeah. Chris Costamos. We got Alex Sanfilippo from Podmatch. I mean, it's here, and like I think there's probably 150 people in the room, and it was like I'm the president, but I actually was speaking that night, and I'm like, we're going to listen to an episode of the Side Hustle Nation, and I want feedback, right? And all of them said that you were the most well-spoken, and you had the best pauses, meaning like when you say stuff, you don't ramble. Do you say stuff? You stop. You say stuff, you stop, and that's a gift. Again, I've been interviewing people since 1999. Right. On the radio, not just podcasting. Podcasting only been since 19. So I've been interviewing people for 20 years, and you have the best pause in the business.
Was it intro that you were listening to, or like mid interview?
We listened to about 22, 23 minutes of it. I forget which one it was. I'll send you which one it was. I'll have to look back in my notes. But this was
that's like super nerve-wracking to have a room full of people like critiquing.
They listen to mine, dude. And it's like, shoot, oh man, did I bring it? So it's funny, but we'll just pull it. And it was my turn to pick. And we listened to one from you and then one from Travis Chappell's podcast, which is fantastic as well. So
I worked with a podcast coach for a while, and, we were heavily, working on kind of like the intros, like how can we make this tighter? How can we sell this? How can we make this like choose somebody who's already chosen to like download this thing, but like, how can we make them tune in, like taking cues from terrestrial radio, like coming up after the break, we're doing it like,
right.
And he said, the most powerful thing that you have as a host is that dead air, is that pause. And so trying to slow me down, because like, truth be told, almost all of the intros today are pre-scripted. And so, really trying to, within 45 to 60 seconds, like, okay, what's in it for me? What are you going to learn? Here's why this guest is worth paying attention to, and just trying to get right into it. And that's definitely evolved over time. But he was somebody who embraced the dramatic pause.
Yeah. And you're good. You're good. I mean, just accept the compliment, because you are really good at it.
Well, thank you.
Really good at it. So let me ask you something. Let's take out of this equation anything electronic. No laptops, no books, no phones, no laptops, notebooks, phones. What are 3 things that Nick can't live without?
No electronic things. That's hard to think. That's hard to say. I think humans are almost infinitely adaptable.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you figure out a way. Something that actually a guest of mine, a friend of mine, former mastermind member of mine, turned me on to were these like resistance bands. So use that super lightweight to pack up when you travel to do like resistance training. So those are something that was like $40 or something for a set of them. Like it wasn't a huge investment. I guess this is electronic, but it's like an e-bike that I bought a couple of summers ago.
Oh, that's awesome. Good.
And it's like, okay, fine. Your legs work just fine. It could be a regular bike, but I find myself using that for transportation more than recreation, like for local trips.
Yeah.
I think that's been really helpful. Other things. This is kind of a silly one. I actually picked this up from Brian Harris from formerly Video Fruit, but now Growth Tools, I think.
Yeah.
He was like, just every Facebook post of his for like a month was like about the virtues of stretchy jeans. And I was like, they make stretchy jeans for guys, and sure enough, they do. And they're like by far way more comfortable than
More
whatever old
comfortable.
jeans they had. Like
Mine are.
Yeah, it's, I don't know,
Yeah.
game changer. If you
And
haven't
I'm-
gone on the stretchy, women have had these for, I don't
Yeah.
know, a decade or two,
Yeah.
probably longer, but it's like, oh, these
Right.
are actually way more comfortable.
And I'm 6'1", I'm 260. And there's jeans that fit me perfectly for the stretchy jeans. They're also, my fiance brought me some. I'm like, and I put them on. I'm like, oh my gosh. Felt like I was
Yeah, I
wearing
don't know if I get
pajamas, dude. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
it's so comfortable.
That's awesome. So, Nick, what is your definition of a life well lived then?
A life well lived. Being able to have control over your calendar is the biggest thing for me. And that was my biggest pain point with working corporate America was, having to ask permission to take time off. And my boss was never the guy who said no. It just felt weird to have to ask. So it just having control of your time is a life well lived. And then having the freedom to spend that time in a way that serves you, serves your family, serves others.
Love it, man. That's awesome. Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. We are back, and I got Nick Loper. And Nick, I'm going to hook up with Nick one time. I'm going to talk to him about a few of these questions in person where we can talk 15, 20 minutes. But Nick, you got 5 seconds to answer the questions with no explanations. You ready to level up? And they can all be answered that way. You ready?
5 seconds.
5 seconds. They can all be done. Let's rock.
Okay.
What is the best leveling up advice Nick's ever received?
Pay attention to what's working for other people.
Yes. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Consistency.
Beautiful. You see me walking down the street, you're like, man, Fergie looks like he's a little bit in his doldrums. Other than your books, what book would you hand me?
4,000 Weeks.
Never heard of it. Who's that by? You can expand.
I don't know the author.
Okay.
Just read this recently.
Okay.
The concept is that everyone has 4,000 weeks of life on the average lifespan. And so it really puts it into perspective.
Yeah.
And what's cool about this is it's not a traditional productivity book that I expected when I picked it up. It's a lot more on the mindset of letting go of the entire world of possibilities that you want to have on your bucket list. And you see everybody doing on social media.
Got it.
No, realistically, you're never going to be able to do that stuff. So enjoy the moment, focus on what's right in front of you. That was helpful for me.
Love it.
It's always there's never enough time to do all the things.
Love it. Donnie, put that in the show notes, please. Thank you. What's your most commonly used emoji when you text?
The laugh crying.
Love it. Nicknames growing up?
Just Loper or a friend of mine called me Sponge. So it's a good student in school.
Love it, man. Chess or checkers?
I don't know. Probably chess is more intellectually stimulating, but
I'm a checkers.
Haven't played either in a long time.
Ice cream flavor, go to ice cream flavor.
Cookie dough.
Beautiful. There's a Loper sandwich named after you. What's on the sandwich?
Okay, there's no bread on this sandwich, and it's probably just a Shake Shack burger. Shake Shack, lettuce wrap.
I dig it, man. So you have a time machine. You could either go 20 years in the future or 20 years in the past. Which one are you going?
Oh gosh. Well, we talked about the future might look kind of scary in 20 years. I don't want to miss the kids growing up either. They're going to be, mid-20s by then. Sure. So I guess I'd have to go backwards.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Favorite charity and organization like to give your time or money to?
Side Hustle Nation is a 1% for the Planet member. So trying to be a better steward of this only home that we all share.
Excellent. Love it. Love it. Last question. The best decade of music, 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
90s.
90s. All right. Love it. May I ask your age, Nick?
So I'm a millennial, so it's all 90s.
Okay.
There's Pearl Jam. There's all sorts of good stuff in the 90s.
Yeah, I grew up with the 80s with the big hair, don't care. I was born in 72, so I was as the 80s rolled in, I graduated in 90, so the 80s was my jam. But when I went in the military and I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, it was all Nirvana and all the garage bands and the grunge bands, and it was our jam, That's awesome. So, Nick, how can we find you, my friend?
SideHustleNation.com. Maybe SideHustleNation.com/ideas is a good place to start if you're kind of on the sidelines looking for some creative inspiration there. Okay. Of course, we'd love to have you tune into the Side Hustle Show in your favorite podcast app. We're closing in on 500 episodes of really inspiring case studies. Been there, done that, entrepreneurs, how they got it done.
Love it. And tell me a little bit about this book, the $1,000, 100 Ways How People Make Real Money.
Yeah, this was crowdsourced from the Side Hustle Nation community. Wanted to figure out a way to showcase some of the cool businesses that people, that readers and listeners were working on. And it's broken into kind of a parallel format where everybody answers the same set of questions. How do you come up with that idea? How do you get your first traction or customers? What else has worked to market the business? How much did it cost to get started? What mistakes have you made along the way? What should you do differently? And where are you going? What's next? So it kind of follows that. So you can kind of compare apples to apples across all the different case studies in there.
Wow. And it's 300 pages too. So, I mean, you've put a lot of information in there, huh? Love it.
It's a fun one to curate and see some of the surprising stuff that came back. Like, oh, that's really creative.
I love it. And Squad, I'm going to give away not only that book, but probably two of his other books, which I'll pick those out. But the first person that puts Side Hustle in any of the comments on any of our social, I'm going to actually purchase the book and send it to Nick. And if you don't mind signing it and sending it out, that'd be fantastic. I'll pay for the postage, whatever needs, but I'll purchase the book and send it out for him to Nick. You mind doing that? Signing it for us?
Yeah, we can make it happen.
Awesome. I love it, man. That's fantastic. And Squad, we have had Nick's given up, 10 minutes over the time that we had allotted. A guy that was in corporate America wasn't really feeling it, had a lot of downtime. So he started setting up these comparison shop sites, and he saw, a way for him to kind of break out from that awesome sauce rat race that he was stuck in. He liked to deconstruct business ideas, which when he started to do that, started opening up the creative side of his mind. And then he starts paying it forward by bringing people onto the show that are doing side hustles and earning money, like real money, to help them and possibly even break away from his guests' real work. But also he passes it on to you with the knowledge nuggets to help you break away as well. He will be remembered. Actually, he wants to remind you, don't go it alone. There are people that are there in your present, because so many people have a foot in the future, foot in the past, and they pee all over the present. Just pay attention in your present. Get your asking gear. There are people there to help you. He'll be remembered as a good husband, a great teacher that really had a passion for exercising financial independence. And life well lived to Nick is someone that has controlled the time, and with control of the time, have that freedom to spend the time with the people they love, go places they want to be. And Nick is just a fantastic human being. He's so well-spoken. His podcast, again, I don't miss an episode. He levels up his health. He levels up his wealth. He's humble, yet he's very hungry for better and thriving and helping you thrive. So, Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love your guts, brother. I can't wait to meet you in person, hopefully at PodFest here in a couple of months, brother.
All right. Fergie, thanks so much, man.
You bet. Chat soon.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today podcast, proudly brought to you by Sutter & Nugent Real Estate Excellence, who can be reached at 561-249-7266 and online at www.sutterandnugent.com. If you are a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on Time to Shine Today, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there, you will see our recommended resources. We hope that you will support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've been listening to, it'd be great if you could just give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's our time to shine.